welcome everyone to the Madison City Planning Commission regular meeting for January the 10th, 2022. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mike Armstrong?
Here.
Van Crafton?
Here.
Carl Eaglin?
Here.
Jeff Kernan?
Here.
Jerry Ralston?
Here.
Patrick Dedlow?
Here.
Josh Wilbur?
Here.
Daryl Henderson?
Here. Everyone received a copy of the minutes for our December meeting. There was no additions or corrections. I would accept the motion to approve.
I approve we accept the minutes as presented. I'll second, Patrick.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, same sign. Okay, new applications tonight. The first one is Barbara and Joshua Ford, a setback application for the construction of a self-storage facility and general business zoning. The applicant is requesting a 10-foot setback on the north lot line, 10-foot setback on the east lot line, 10-foot setback on the south lot line, and a 10-foot setback from the west lot line at 3369 Chicken Run Road, zone general business. Josh, if you can come up and give us your name and address and tell us what you're doing.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joshua Ford. My wife's picking up the kids. Her name's Barbara Ford. We live in Hanover, Indiana, and this is related to a piece of property right off of Clifty Drive, 3369 Chicken Run Road. We've owned this for probably 20 years, and with the economic activity that is generated in the county, we finally feel like we're in a position to establish a new business. And we're seeking this application to start a self-storage business. Won't be an office there at this point. There'll simply be a few buildings. There's actually in the attachment, you can see the application, some of the images. We intend to start with 1 or 2 buildings, just financially keeping our heads level. And then as it grows, we will grow. The picture that they had sent from the manufacturer actually provides way more buildings than I can afford, but I like their optimism. And it's your first agenda item of this year. I'm seeking your approval for this, and I'm excited to bring something new. I feel like there's a need in the community as we see more economic expansion, and as you actually outline and decide future communities, neighborhoods in this community. As you decide where people will put trailers and RVs and in storage buildings, just thinking ahead to what that will mean in terms of where those things will go and where they'll be stored in a safe, secure location. So that's why we're making this application today.
Basically the 10-foot is 10 foot off the right-of-ways of it, I guess.
It is, and the intention there was, I wanted to give us some space I was working with Joe, just trying to understand how far the building should be off the road, but it's actually going to be about 25 feet so that RVs or U-Hauls can safely make the turns around the property there inside the fence line. We did get a call about 15 minutes ago. My wife, someone named Kuntz, who had a North Vernon phone number, was concerned about property value and concerned that this might impact her property value. Our intention is to model this off of some facilities we've seen in Clark County that had some landscaping, some extra trees and things around it. Put a green space near Mr. Black, Beatrice and Ray Beatrice Black. Want to try to protect them and obviously use downlighting. This isn't a baseball game, it's a storage facility. And at 9 o'clock, probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night, it'll be closed for the evening and it won't open again until 6 a.m. So there won't be people there overnight. And then the orientation of the buildings, if you look at the drawing, the orientation is so that if there was a concern, law enforcement would be able to just use their flashlights and they could see right down the lanes, so they could see things happening there.
Basically, it's operating where they've got a card or something, they can get
Yeah,
in, correct?
exactly.
But you don't have that turned off at night.
Yeah. At 10 p.m. it'll be turned off for the evening, and then it'll be resumed at 6 a.m.
Right.
I'm just sensitive. If I was living in that neighborhood, I certainly wouldn't want someone banging around unloading stuff at midnight. I understand people work weird hours, but we also understand people live there, in the community. So we're very respectful of that and cognizant of that.
Josh, where do you intend to start with the buildings?
I'm actually going
to.
Yeah, a good question. So the first building will actually be in the drawing that was attached there. I'm going to start with the first building near where the entryway was marked. So it'll be closest to the eastward side of the property. It'll be toward the eastward side of the property. There'll be one building, and then the second, and then they'll move their way towards where that north compass mark is. kind of filling it up that way. My intention, probably short term, is if there's interest in the community for RV and trailer storage, things like that, it'll be along that most westerly side of the property. And it's gonna be fenced in, it'll be a secure location, kind of a decorative fence out near the road, and then more like a chain link security on the backside.
Can you plan on just a gravel type parking?
Probably in the interim, yeah. My intention though is to make it, I want to be very eye appealing. I'm targeting kind of, I want to join the chamber and kind of target those kind of that's the kind of impression we want to make on people. So
How
the
many
price
acres
just-
do you have there?
It's approximately 6.5 acres.
6.5 acres.
And the way the drawing works, actually about the first 400 feet off the road, off of Clifty Drive, will be undeveloped. There is an older home that's been there for almost 100 years. It'll probably remain there until we just kind of get this going, and then eventually I'll be removing that from the
So
property.
you own that?
I do, yes.
Okay, basically, this board can only talk about setbacks, but we appreciate the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
It wasn't my first time.
You're fine.
No.
But, any other questions from the board?
Well, you said the fencing, so the fence will be 10 foot from the property line,
Yeah,
and then the buildings.
will be after that, yeah. That we were thinking about landscaping on the outside of the fence potentially, so that's what we're thinking.
Okay, Josh, I'll have you sit down a minute and see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak. Yes, sir.
I'm Robert Black. I live at 1988 North Orchardine Road. I'm here representing my mother. My father had passed last month, and she lives at 3473. So I'm representing Marie Black tonight, and I have my brother-in-law and sister, Julie Licklider, and my brother Ray Black here. I do have pictures for you to look at the lot. This was taken after a moderate rain that we had just last week with of course my mother, obviously, she's against it because of the drainage issues. Several years ago, we actually had it nicknamed out there, that's Crawdaddy Land. When it rains too much, the crawdads throw up the white flags, they've had enough. Jerry used to live out that way, so you know. So what has happened is when the state of Indiana had done the first phase of Clifty Drive, all the refuge and old road had been piled up along there where you see RKO Enterprises at now, the new Cruising Auto, the trailer sales they've had there and all this. This is about 5 or 6 feet, anywhere between 5, 6, or 5.5 feet above of what this lot actually, what you're looking at is below grade of those other lots. The soil and water conservation, my father had went to them because of all the water that has been pushed back on our property just from that there. Since we're going to be talking these storage facilities, most generally they are paved, they are concreted. So what's that going to do to our water? It's not going to run up to Clifty Drive, because if it did, then it would come back around down and still flood us. That is it possible to do that? So with the low lying area there, our farm ground's not going to be in very good shape when it rains, because we're going to require more water. The soil and water conservation would go up against the state of Indiana, and they did nothing, so we continue to get flooded just with what's there already. The Jim Wayner farms that ground. Then, and I understand downlights, we already have a storage facility out there. Everybody has seen it, the Storage Express. The lighting off that, even with the downward lights, still shine in the back of the house. And lights up all the way around there. So when we add more lights on the other side, my mother's house is going to be totally encompassed by lights around it when the project, gets expanded gets added onto or whatever. And then she is very concerned about the value of her house because the property he's talking about actually used to belong to our uncle that was sold off many years ago. And her 1 acre lot sticks in that 6.5 acres lot there, so that's why they're gonna go around it. Then you're gonna have the chain link fences, you know, you have to have those up for security to keep people out. As of this last year, we started noticing when I started walking the fields, and the sheriff's department telling me about the stuff that's been getting complaints of people stealing. Guess where they came? They came right up the fence line, throwed it over the fence from the other storage express, came right up our property, and hauled their goods out in the middle of the night from there. So her safety at 91 years old is a very concerned. It's gone to the point, most of us have keep a weapon in our vehicle because we don't know what's going to go on. So she's very concerned about all of it. And yes, I did talk to Miss Coons today. She's another neighbor that her family has lived there all their lives. So there is a great concern. And then you have to look at Chicken Run Road as itself. I travel that road every day. My sister and brother all travel it every day. I've been, of course I would remember that never, before 3 years old, but I've been there 55 years this year. We already know what the traffic problems are there. And I think Mr. Ford I can testify or say that when they have, when Dean has farmed it, most of the time they're mudding the beans in. They're taking 4-wheel drive tractors in there now to get it planted or combines in there. And it's usually a mess every fall after they get done. They have to go in and rework it again in the spring to get it ready again for fall tillage. But I know from our side of it, it's not as easy as what it looks. It's not as simple as dressing it up and making it look nice. You're still gonna have that. And if down the road they decide to open it up after 10 o'clock, let people come in all hours of the night, then we'll be fighting against that. So we do oppose that. Not to say we don't want to work with business, but there's no way around working with this. There's no way whatsoever.
You know, unfortunately, as I said before, this board only does setbacks. You know, the ground is zoned properly. The drainage and up would come at a later time in engineering, but this board only addresses setbacks. And it is zoned correctly, so that's all we can look at.
That's all you can look at.
Pardon?
Okay.
Okay.
So-
Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak?
I have a question. What plans would be made to actually get the water away from?
Again, that would be an engineering that has nothing to do with this board.
Okay.
So what board do we have to go in front of?
It would be the building inspector and the engineering at the time they put the buildings up.
So it does automatically gets approved then?
Pardon?
It automatically gets approved then?
No, it doesn't automatically get approved, we take a vote on it, but it's, I mean, we only can look at setbacks, that's all this board can look at.
And there's not another board to go up against? You either have to get a lawyer or go on.
Because it's zoned correctly, yes. But again, it would come to engineering at that point.
It's not engineered in there to deal with them, so. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions from the board? Yes, ma'am.
When was that zoning changed?
When was the zoning changed? I have no idea.
Yeah, the last we knew that was zoned residential agriculture.
Yeah,
It's changed, Jim.
This is big.
it's zoned general business. Most of the, and again, I don't know, a lot of it was changed in 1981, which was the last zoning ordinance, then it's been renewed a couple of times, but can't say that, I don't know. Yes, I don't know that.
Who would know that?
who would know when the zoning was changed?
Yes.
I'm sure the zoning, or the building inspector, or the department, they could look that up, yes. But I think, you know, all down through there was general business, I mean, over the years, it's been a long time anyway.
Well, I knew that strip close to Clifty Drive was, but, you know, as you go west,
Yeah.
we've already suffered from the state already, you know, when they built that up. So, I mean, there's all kind of trash that was buried in there.
I understand.
And that was, you know, no concerns from the city about that.
Yeah.
It just seems hard for us, you know, we're kind of in that, you know, we're in that buffer zone, and nobody wants to take responsibility, everybody wants, it just seems like we're getting dumped on. And I understand your dealings was just the setback.
Right.
So.
And if it's zoned right and the setbacks are right, this board,
Yeah,
that's
no,
all
I
the
get
authority
that.
we got.
I get that, I understand, but
Right.
you gotta appreciate where we come
I
from.
understand that too, yeah. There is a zoning, is that map still on the wall in there? The zoning map is still on the wall?
We do have a zoning map on the wall, but it's probably not the most.
Not up to date, probably not up to date, but you can get with the building inspector's office and they can look that up for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Any
this
other
may be irrelevant, but I cannot imagine doing that to a 91-year-old woman, or any neighbor, putting that in there, regardless of how it's managed. And I know that has nothing to do with what you're deciding, but I just can't imagine doing that to someone.
I appreciate and understand. It's just that little,
If Mr. Ford wants to be a good neighbor, I would advise him, if it's not, again, it's not part of our duties here, but I would advise him not to put up big directional lighting like you have at Storage Express. Having put those up when I worked for Duke Energy, I remember when those were ordered, and that's light spillage everywhere, so.
And that goes all night.
Absolutely, they're dusted on.
Yeah.
So maybe you can persuade him to use some surface lighting or something to that effect where it won't add to that problem.
I actually reviewed the lighting ordinance that's published on the website, and I felt.
we need to get you guys to
I'm
the
sorry.
microphone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, we should have you people.
Yeah, my concern is some of the people here. I totally understand the lighting situation. I looked at Storage Express's lighting set up as sort of against the ordinance. You know, it's more like a baseball park, and it was done after that ordinance. I think that ordinance I have to go back and look. It's a few years old. I knew I did not want it to live like that. So we actually found a model of a place in Clark County that we thought was very low wattage. You know, it would be a secure location. It could provide cameras and you know, we provide it that way. So that was my intention in terms of development. And I'm sensitive to the elderly lady in question too. I hope to put a green space in between so that, you know, I know you guys don't care about that, but they do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I am sensitive to that, and I'll make sure I do my best to resolve it.
Okay, any other questions for the board? I would accept the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the application for the setbacks, as set forth at 10 feet on each, at the north, south, east, and west lot at 3369 Chicken Run Road, Madison, Indiana.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, we have a roll call vote.
Mike Armstrong,
Approved.
Ben Crafton,
Approved.
Carl Eagle,
Approved.
Jeff Kernan,
Yes. Approved.
Jerry Ralston,
Approved.
Patrick Tevno,
Approved.
Josh Wilbur,
Approved.
Daryl Henderson.
Yes. Okay, our next item of business tonight is Trilogy Health Services LLC, an application for a variance from Subdivision Regulations for 513, 515, 517, 521, 523, 525, and 601 West Street Zone Central Business District. Bill, I'll let you come up and tell us, it's a variance from Subdivision Regulations, which honestly, this board has done it different in the past, so you can tell us, I think there's just one lot that this affects in there, correct?
Yes, one we're gonna do is the variance on the setback.
The variance on setbacks, yes.
Yeah, and the only one that's gonna really
We need to
cause a
get your
problem.
name that,
Pardon?
name that.
Bill Pettit, Hamilton, Indiana. The only lot that'll have a problem is the one that's right next to the alley, or was actually platted as 4th Street, and it goes right between the old KDH hospital and their physician's office building.
Correct.
And it's been whittled down over the years. It was originally platted 40 foot, and you can't hardly find 40 foot anywhere in there. But, this one house is right on the alley. We're putting the property line right up against the house. Not much else to do. I mean, we don't wanna go in the alley with the property line.
Correct. And
So it's gonna have to have 0 offset. But the rest of them, we've got, now there's, between that same house and between Trilogy's building, there's only 3 foot total there. And so we put the property line right against the house, and we created a maintenance easement between Trilogy and the house, so that they can all maintenance on their buildings in there. There's a sidewalk between them. That's the only room there is in there's one sidewalk. The rest of them, we got our 3 foot clearances or what we needed on the rest of the buildings, but that one, there's no way to do it.
Yeah, basically, it's the problem we usually run into on the zoning board, and the fact that it's houses that were built in the 1800s, and we're trying to make it fit the current world, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, Main Street's supposed to be 100 foot right away, and you can't find 100 foot anywhere in Main Street,
Right, exactly.
so.
Okay,
I have just a concern, I guess, a question, because, most of these buildings are duplexes,
2, 3 of them.
3 of them.
3.
And are they going to have their separate utilities, separate sewer line, everything separate? Because I know there's some issues in Madison where there's been some lawsuits where neighbors tie into one discharge line. Who's responsible?
Well,
I know this may not be,
right.
I have a concern with this.
You know, there's been no discussions of changing any what's there, that, to leave it like it is. Actually, between the first lot there, next to Presbyterian, and the next lot, there's 10 foot between those 2 houses. But we created the whole thing as an easement, because right in the middle of it is a concrete mound, and all the AC units sit between those 2 houses.
Yeah,
So we just turned the whole thing into a maintenance easement between them. And we split the line between them, but it had to be a maintenance, because half air conditioners should be on one side and half on the other end.
But you see my concern on this.
Yeah, whatever they've been, I think is what they're gonna stay.
The duplexes, they're being split, onto one parcel, not both sides of the duplex on one parcel, is that my understanding?
Yeah, the whole duplex will be on one parcel. There's 5 lots, and 3 of those are duplex units.
Bill, wouldn't it have been a little less trouble for you guys? You wouldn't have had to worry about any of this meeting subdivision codes if they'd have just returned them to individual residential parcels in the first place?
Well, it had all been lumped back into one parcel to KDH, so something had to do to get them back to individual parcels. They were in one Trilogy boundary.
Right, but calling them a subdivision, now it becomes, we're trying to fit it under a new subdivision ordinance, which 100-year-old, 200-year-old homes won't fit in without variances. But if you'd have returned those to individual parcels.
No, that one house is partly in the street. The one down that alley between KDH, that's even in the street.
the
So
thing is,
you'd
I
have to-
think because of the fact this board at some point, and I was on it, I guess, but I don't remember it, but at some point, this board turned it over to KDH as in one hunk. So
Well, and that-
now we have to get it out of KDH.
That one house was probably built there before there was ever a barn.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It probably wasn't his own at all.
Right, right.
Let's deal with it now.
Yeah, right. Okay, any other questions from the
Here's the
board?
green card. Two didn't come back and one of them was KDH.
Anyone in the audience to speak for or against? Okay, on the paper I handed out was this, it's the findings of facts for a variance from developmental standards. And I'll have to go through the questions and ask each one of you individually. We've not done this before, but Mr. Sharp thinks it's the proper way to do it in case somewhere down the road there's questions. So that's what we will do. The first question is, with the approval of this application, will the approval of this application be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community? And I'll just go through my names as I have them written down. Jeff Kernan? No. And Jonathan Crafton?
No.
Carl Eaglin?
No.
Patrick Devenall?
No.
Jerry Ralston?
No.
Josh Wilbur?
No.
Mike Armstrong?
No.
And I would also say no because we're dealing with, again, putting 1800s houses back in a subdivision. So, second question tonight, will the use and value of the area adjacent to this property included in the variance will be affected in a substantially adverse manner? Jeff Kern?
No.
Jonathan Crafton, sorry.
No.
Carl Eaglin?
No.
Patrick Tevenall?
No.
Jerry Ralston?
No.
Josh Wilbur?
No.
Mike Armstrong?
No.
And I would also say no, because it actually, I think that property values will probably go up once this is completed. Question number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties for use of the property. Jeff Kern?
No.
The strict application of terms of zoning. No, yeah, if it was, I think the answer would be yes, wouldn't it? The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties of the use of the property. In other words, if we left it, it will not result in practical difficulties.
But if we required the
If we required
setbacks,
the
then
application, the way it is, it would be.
A strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance.
So it'd be yes, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
It would be yes.
Okay. Jonathan Grafton?
Yes.
Carl Eaglin?
Yes.
Patrick Tevenall?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Josh Wilbur?
Yes.
Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
And I would agree also if under the strict application of the zoning ordinance, they couldn't sell the house, couldn't do this. Question number 4, is this request contrary to public interest? Jeff Kern?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Jonathan Grafton?
No.
Carl Eaglin?
No.
Patrick Tevenall?
No.
Jerry Ralston?
No.
Josh Wilbur?
No.
Mike Armstrong?
No.
And I would agree, no, I think it's actually it would help the public interest. Question number 5, are there conditions peculiar to the property? Jeff Kern?
Yes.
Yes.
In that part of it's in the alley.
Exactly.
But there's nothing they can do about that without tearing the place down, so.
Jonathan Crafton?
Yes.
Carl Eaglin?
Yes.
Patrick Tevenall?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Josh Wilbur?
Yes, and I'd also say this because of the maintenance easements that have to be created as well.
Correct. Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
And I would agree also, just we're in downtown Madison, nothing fits basically. 6, are there peculiarities of the property as a result of the applicant?
No.
No. Jeff Kernan?
No.
No. Jonathan Crafton?
No.
Carl Eaglin?
No.
Patrick Kavanaugh?
No.
Jerry Ralston?
No.
Josh Wilbur?
No.
Mike Armstrong?
Nope.
I'd also agree, there's no peculiar there. And, item 7, will the owner sustain an unnecessary and will the owner sustain an unnecessary and undue hardship if this wasn't passed?
What owner are we talking about? Is, they're planning to sell this, right? That's the idea.
Well, no, but right now, it's just for Trilogy,
It's
yes.
just Trilogy, yeah.
Jeff Kernan?
No.
Yeah, well, it'd be yes. He would,
Well, only.
sustain, he would sustain
Necessary or undue hardship.
if it wasn't passed.
They say that.
Be able to sell the house.
Right. Will the owner sustain unnecessary or undue hardship? I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know
It's
either.
backwards. Jonathan Crafton,
Yes.
Carl Eaglin?
Yes.
Patrick Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Josh Wilbur?
No.
Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
And yes, I believe yes is the correct answer to that. Okay, we've gone through the findings of fact. I will accept the motion on the application.
I make the motion, we approve the application as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a roll call vote?
Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
Van Crafton?
Yes.
Carl Eagle?
Yes.
Jeff Kernan?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Patrick Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Josh Wilbur?
Yes.
Darrell Henderson?
Yes. Okay. The application for the variance passes. The next item of business is Trilogy Health Services LLC, a final plat for the proposed subdivision consisting of 5 lots totaling .371 acres from the parcel locations 513, 15, 517, 521, 523, 525, and 601 West Street, zone Central Business District. Bill, again?
Yep.
Again, we went through the preliminary
I
plat.
don't worry what the plan's out today or not, but, and I can give you a copy of these Mylars, which I'm gonna want you to sign after we get that. But here's a couple copies of it. Refresh your memory on it. This is what we put that easement in there, but like I said, there's 3 foot in there. And then you got a 3 foot through here and 3 foot down the side. But this will stay Trilogy right here, because that's sidewalk and it's kind of courtyard. Very nice place in here.
Yeah, it's not just certain
So
areas.
this will stay with Trilogy here.
So they have access over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only concern was if these things had the sewer discharges going
Right.
this way and not this way.
I doubt it, because these houses are older
Yeah.
almost and
But
a whole lot
you said you've
older
been
than
to
this.
3 of them.
Now, the original KDH maybe not, but
Yeah.
these houses are.
Yeah, about 20 years from now, somebody said, well, you know, let's go back to and find out over here. You know, but, you know, like I said, you don't know if I'm giving them. Well, yeah, that's what I said, there's a long, right now going on, who's responsible. Down the road, maybe. Stop it.
Okay, any questions from the board? Anyone in the audience to speak for or against? I would accept the motion on the final plat.
I move we approve the final plat for, these addresses on West Street.
I second that.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have a roll call vote?
Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
Van Crafton?
Yes.
Carl Eagle?
Yes.
Jeff Kernan?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Patrick Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Josh Wilbur?
Yes.
Darrell Henderson?
Yes. Okay, in older new business, we have the election. It says the 2021 Plan Commission Chairman, but I think that should be the 2022 Plan Commission Chairman. vice chairman, attorney, and secretary.
I'll make a motion, we nominate Bill Anderson, chairman.
I second that. Didn't say-
Second that, 2022.
They have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please, same sign. Okay.
For yourself?
Yeah. Vice chair,
Nominate Josh Wilbur.
I second that.
Okay, sorry, second.
nomination and a second for Josh Wilbur as the vice chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The attorney, I'd move that we approve Devin Sharp, if we can find him, for the attorney for another year.
50% then.
The
I'll
attorney
second.
is actually not required for this.
Pardon?
The attorney is not required.
Yeah.
So
That's what they would do.
Really? Okay, secretary? Secretary? I move that we have Joe Madison as secretary.
A second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any other new or old business? Accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second.
Just to remind you, I need a couple signatures, I need a couple signatures on that thing before you get away.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Darryl, you didn't ask for a favor.
Yes.
Keep up with inflation.
Special, man.
Well,
Take care of it. I went through it twice.